Okay, in week one, we learned a little bit about color. Week two, this is week two, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing our work with color, and now we're moving into areas of production. So I have this logo, which is your Aqua Excursions logo. This is the logo that was supplied to you for the projects for week two and week three. And the projects, the assignment for week two is to design a print-ready business card. And the assignment requirements that you create a three-color card in black and two Pantone colors. You are given this logo in colors which are essentially 7752 and PMS 118. What I'm going to be showing you tonight, and my recording died in the live session, so I got the second half of this on another video that you'll find, and this is the first half, which for some reason I wasn't able to get the audio on. The first part of this covers from the color portion right on up to the actual production of the cards in Adobe Illustrator, and then the rest of it is picked up on video too. So with that being said, I'm going to start off by talking about color in production. We basically have three areas of color that we're working with when we talk about colors for production. We're talking about the web and we're talking about print. And specifically, there's two areas of print. There's CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is known as process color or process printing. And then you have Pantone, which is spot color. So what we're going to be doing this week is we're going to be focusing on the spot color, but I do want to go into some of the aspects of the web color and of the CMYK or process printing color while we're here, so that you get an overall idea of how you work with color. Obviously, this is a color and production class, and I want to make sure that you have a good understanding of this whole process. So before I even get started with this, I want to just come over here and point out that when you open up a document, any document in Illustrator, and this one is going to be in Illustrator, you look over here, you're going to see in your Swatches panel a series of colors. These colors are really pretty meaningless. There's nothing really wrong with them, but they are just colors that have nothing to do with any particular project that you will be working on. What I generally do is I get rid of them. Before I even go into that, though, I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to hit New, and I'm just going to slam up a new document. And the reason I'm doing this is, here's your new document. If you take a look over here, you can see your swatches have come up. So that's the point, that these are your basic swatches. When you open up a document, you get these swatches. I'm going to close this document because I'm not going to use it. This is just a demonstration to show you, in fact, that these colors come up. Close this, go back to my swatches library, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed to show you how I handle my artwork when I create something in Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, or even InDesign. What I generally like to do is I like to start off by getting rid of all these colors, because they just, in my mind, get in the way. And I don't need things in the way. I want to be a professional. I want to look professional. I want my work to seem professional to others. And this is one small step that will help do that. By coming over here to this little drop-down menu that you see up in the corner of the Swatches panel and clicking, you can come down and you can choose to select all unused. I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice that these all sort of highlight. And then I'm going to come down to the garbage can and click the delete swatch. And it says delete the swatches? Yes. And they're all essentially gone, except this little one here, which is sort of persistent. I don't know why it doesn't go away, but it doesn't matter. Hit the garbage can with that, and that's gone. So what I'm left with is, I'm left with my none, my registration, my white, and my black. And I generally leave these. I don't let them, I don't throw them away. I leave them pretty much in there because they certainly don't hurt anything. What I might do is I might take this black and I might actually make, if I'm working in Pantone, I might make a Pantone black, but even that's not too important. So this is basically how I want this to look. So that's step number one. And I'm going to then come over here and I'm going to show you under Aqua Logo Start.ai, which is similar to the file that you're going to have. I want you to see what it says here. It says CMYK. You see it? CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That means essentially that this time, this logo is set up in process colors. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to record those process colors. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and you'll notice that down here in the swatches, or I'm sorry, in the fill, the color registers. So then I'm going to click on that color, hold, and I'm going to drag that color and drop it into my swatches panel. Now when I sit over top of that, you can see it tells me the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black values. So there's your process color for that yellow. And then I'm going to come over here and click on the magenta. And the other way to do this is to come up here and click on the menu, the drop down, click New Swatch, and you get your New Swatch dialog box. And again, take a look. There's the swatch name, which will be the CMYK values. And you'll see it says process color, and you'll see it says CMYK. So all this is important for you to understand, because we're now talking about printing, and these are the things that you need to understand. And there is your color. You also get this little out of web context, but right now we're not worried about that. I'll explain that in a minute. So I'm just going to hit OK. And now I have my two colors up here, and both of these are CMYK. All right? So that's the first step. I've got my CMYK colors, and that's important because you really need to have these colors identified. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and since this logo will probably also be used on the web, I'm going to go in and I'm going to set up my colors for that web application of this logo. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to drop down to Document Color Mode. And I'm going to slide over, and you'll see the check mark is currently next to CMYK color. I'm going to drop it down and click on RGB color. And now if you take a look under the Aqua Logo Start.ai, you'll see it no longer says CMYK. You'll see it says RGB. So what that tells you is that these colors now should register as RGB color. Well, let's see if that's true. I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to come over to the drop down, click on this, and go New Swatch. And look what I get. I get color mode RGB. Color type process color. So what I really want to do here, process color, I'm just going to leave that. As long as it says RGB, I think I'm okay. But here's the thing. Notice that under the swatch name it says R, G, and B. And the RGB, again, is red, green, and blue, which is the colors that are used for the web. But I want you to notice down here that, again, I get that little box that is indicating something's amiss. When I sit on top of it, it tells you that it's out of web color, which means that this particular color is not going to exactly reproduce on the web. So if I wanted to reproduce exactly on the web, which I do, I have to click this little icon. And I want you to watch what happens to this color when I do so. I'm going to click, and it shifts. It's almost imperceivable. You really don't see it shift very much in this particular case. Sometimes the shift is greater, but in this case it's not too bad. So I'm going to click OK. And now if you take a look, this is where it's interesting, because if you take a look at the two yellows side by side, you can really see that there was a shift in color. Now if I sit over top of that yellow, there's the CMYK value. And over here, there is the RGB value. So now up in my swatches library, instead of having a bunch of random stuff, I have CMYK for my yellow and an RGB for my yellow, and I'm going to do the same thing for that burgundy brownish color. I'm going to click here, New Swatch. Again, it's going to tell me it's RGB, and you'll notice that this thing is slightly out of the color range for web. If I click on it, it corrects it. You don't see much of a change, but there is a slight change. The swatch name, of course, is RGB, so we're all good. Hit OK. And now I have my CMYK value for this, and I have my RGB value for that. So there you go. And now if I'm going to use this logo, I go File, Save As. Actually, I'm going to go File, Save as a copy, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I have a folder on my desktop that I'm using. It's called Tonight, and I'm going to save this as the Aqua Logo Start, and I'm going to remove that word copy. So it's aqualogostart.ai, and the format is AI. I'm saving it in the Tonight folder, and I'm going to hit Save. And I'm going to get my Illustrator options. The only thing I want to tell you about this is that you have versions up here, and there are going to be times when somebody's going to ask you for a legacy version. So if I was your printer and I was telling you, well, unfortunately I only have Adobe Illustrator CS4, you wouldn't want to send me CS6 because I'd probably have trouble opening it in CS4. So what you would do is you would go to Illustrator CS4 and you would select CS4, and you'd get this warning telling you the legacy format may cause some changes, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is you can set it back to 4 and you can save it as 4. I'm not doing that because I don't need to do that. I'm just telling you that you can do it. Again, these are production techniques. This is a production course. So I want to explain things to you that make sense from a production standpoint. So I go back to CS6 and I'm just going to hit OK. And now if I open up my folder Tonight, there is the logo, and what I have in that logo is this. I have your logo here, and then I have your colors up here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to turn these colors into spot colors, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to CMYK. Again, set these to CMYK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the swatch. And then I'm going to select my CMYK and I'm going to duplicate the swatch. So now I have 2 of these swatches in here, CMYK. Alright, now of course when I did that I shouldn't have had this selected, which is no big deal. So I just click on this, change it back to my color, and there's my colors. Alright, so what I'm about to do now is I'm about to turn these colors, these 2 colors, into spot colors. So let me talk very briefly about spot colors, because spot colors are essentially Pantone colors. They equate. When you have a spot color, that is more or less the same thing as a Pantone color. It is a singular pre-mixed color. That's what a spot color is. All right? And again, it's a very easy process, something that I just want to show you so that you know how to do it and you know how to handle this. And again, having your swatches recorded up here in your swatch panel is the perfect solution, because now you have one logo that has all of your elements in it and all of your colors that you can easily switch and then go in and create the type of logo that you need. Alright, so what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to double click on that, and this brings up my swatch options dialog box. Now the color type I'm going to change from process color to spot color. The color mode I'm going to change from this to CMYK, and I'm going to hit OK. And what you see now here is, instead of, it's the same name, but what you see here is you see a little corner clip with a dot in it. That indicates that that has become a spot color. So let's do that to this one over here. Click on that, change it to spot color, change this to CMYK, and hit OK. And I now have 2 spot colors. It's really just that simple. Click on this, hold down the Shift key, click on this. And notice that this is the color it currently is, which is the CMYK value. What I'm going to do is, because this project, and this is important, this project has to do with creating a business card, a letterhead, and an envelope. So the project calls for this to be 3 spot colors. So we really need to make sure that we get our colors right in order for this to be correct. This is the thing that you need to understand. If you submit this to me and the colors aren't correct, I'm going to pretend that I'm your printer, and what's going to happen is I'm going to reject your job, because the job can't be printed properly. So it has to be in spot colors. So that means that where right now these colors are in this Pantone or not Pantone, but CMYK color, what I really need it to be is I need it to be in the spot color. And you know what? I'm going to actually, I'm going to click on this to do it. Now it's in that color, and I'm going to do this. Okay, and now that is in that color. See, if I click that, that's highlighted. If I click that, that's highlighted. But what I think I'm going to do to make this easier for you is I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to call this yellow and hit OK. Okay, I'm going to call this come on, let me have it. There we go, spot yellow. Okay, and then double click on this, and I'm going to call it spot MAG, magenta. It's really not magenta, it's actually burgundy. Let's go B-U-R-G. Spot Berg. Oops, that's not a B, that's an E. Berg. Okay, that's good enough. Hit OK. Only thing is, of course, this thing here is in the yellow. All right, so now I have my yellows, and this one I just want to make sure I got that in the right color. I do. So spot yellow, spot burgundy. So that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to come up here very quickly if you're working with this logo, because again, this is your master logo. I'm going to go File, Save, so that you understand this. Save. This is your master logo. Whenever you create a logo, you create a master logo, and eventually you'll find that you're going to be using this logo at different sizes. This particular logo right now is sized probably about right for our project, which is the business card letterhead and envelope. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to allow that to hang in there the way it is, and I'm not going to change the size. I will change the background on this before I actually export it, which we're about to do. I just want to make sure that everybody is completely solidly clear on this. I clean out my swatches, I choose my colors for my logo, and then what I do is I apply my colors here, and I make sure that I record my CMYK, my RGB, my CMYK, my RGB, and my spot colors. And then if I'm going to be working on something which is a multicolor or a spot color project, I apply the correct swatches. When this thing becomes a process color job, I'm going to apply the process colors right there and right there. Okay? So that's really what it is. If you want, I mean, you can get into things like this where you're going to create color groups. We'll call this process and then hit OK. And what you could do is you could grab your process color, which is that guy right there, and you could drag that into that. And you could drag your process color, which is right there, and you could drag that into that. And now you got your process color. And if you want, you can click again on a new color group, and you can call this Pantone or Spot. That's even better. S-P-O-T, and hit OK. And there you have one in there, and now you click on that and drag that in, and now your spot colors are in a folder that's called Spot, and your process are in, and here the only one you have to do if you want to do it is your RGB, you know, your web colors. So this is the whole point, is that you're trying to set up something which makes this whole process easy for you. So I'm going to just make sure, there it is, the spot color, make sure, there it is, the spot color, and the spot color. So this logo is currently set up perfect. This is exactly what I want. This is what you want to do. There's one more thing that I want to go over with you real quick, and that is up here in the window menu. I'm going to come down to the Swatch libraries, and I'm going to go to color books. And your assignment tells you that your project needs to be in Pantone colors. It gives you Pantone colors. But I wanted to show you the Pantone color books that exist. I think it's very important that you understand a little bit about this. So in the Swatch libraries under color books, you have all these different color books. And you have a number of different Pantone color books. There's not just one, there's a bunch of them. And they all serve slightly different purposes. Let me talk briefly about the CMYK coded and CMYK uncoded, and the solid coded and uncoded, which are very similar. You'll notice that each one of these groups have a coded and uncoded version. Color bridge coded, coded, uncoded. Coded, coated, uncoated, coated. All these have their own version. And they have their different types. Coated means essentially the stock has some kind of a coating on it, whether it's a varnish, a plastic coating, mylar, something. There's some sort of a coating on it. And those particular colors are for that particular type of paper. How would you find out about that? You would talk to your printer. Your printer would basically be the one telling you to use this particular Pantone color library to pick color from. Uncoated means that there is no coating. It might be a hot plate finish, or it might be a soft finish, a smooth finish, a rag finish, depending upon the kind of stock. But the printer would be the one that would tell you. Or you might have the color paper swatches, and you might be telling the printer what paper you want. However it works out, there are different color books, and you have to use them. I'm going to show you one, which is the Pantone CMYK Coated. Alright, so there's your Pantone CMYK coated book. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I want to get you to see a slightly better idea of what you're up against when you're dealing with Pantone color. These are all individual color swatches. One library of color, the Pantone Plus CMYK. So what this is essentially saying is any one of these colors works as a Pantone color, can also be used in the CMYK environment, which means that it can do double, and then it can work on a coated stock. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to create that logo in blues. Let's say I didn't really want this yellow and this burgundy color. Let's say I wanted some nice blues. All I would really have to do as an artist, a creative person, would be to come down here and look at my blues and decide where I want these blues to go. I don't really have anything particular in mind, so I'm just going to show you how easy it is to create a couple of blue colors. So here's the color I'm going to substitute that burgundy for. I think maybe I like that color right there. So I'm going to click that color, and notice that right away it puts it into my color library. Now, I need something a little bit different to go with this. So I think maybe what I'm going to go for is, I don't know, let's try that. That looks like it's interesting. So now I have my two colors. Unfortunately, I got this thing selected. So there's my blue. Let's put it on so that you can quickly see this. And there's my color version of my logo in blues. Okay? So that's really how easy it is to use these libraries, and it really comes down to being told or arriving at a possible solution with your printer as to which color book you use. But it is just that simple. Now, if I want this thing to be spot, what I'm going to do is change it from process to spot and hit OK, and just do the same thing with this. Double click on it, change it from process to spot, and hit OK. So now I'm basically on my way, and I can put the spots down in with the spot. Okay, and the only reason I'm doing it is so that I can show you how simple it really is to generate these colors, and so that you get used to the idea that there are specific ways that you can go in and modify this using this program, getting these colors. So let's go back to our original colors. Click on that, come back up here, make it the yellow, click on that, make it the yellow, make that the burgundy, and I'm going to get rid of this for now. Alright, so the next step, what are we going to do? We're going to export this. We're going to export this logo. Once again, I'm going to go File, Save, just to make sure I got everything saved. So, exporting requires some thought. If we are working in Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, believe it or not, I could actually export this logo, or I could actually import this logo as an Adobe Illustrator file, although I don't really want to do that. So what I want to do is I want to decide on one of two things. I want to decide on whether or not I want this thing to export as, if it's going to print. And we're talking about print right now. And we're talking about multicolor print. Again, go back to what we're working on right here, right there, our spot colors. So this logo is going to be used in a spot environment. So what I want to do before I do this is, I got all this extra space out here. And generally, when I have this kind of extra space around something like a logo, I want to get rid of it. And there's a really easy way to do that. By going over to my artboards, I only have the one artboard out here. There's no other artboards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the drop-down menu for the artboards. And I'm going to come down, I'm going to go to Artboard Options, and I'm going to click. And my Artboard Options dialog box comes up, and you'll notice the crop marks start showing, and you see all these little markers here which enable me, if I want, to drag this, make it bigger, make it smaller. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to basically do it by hand. So, or not by hand, I want to do it by automation. So if I come to presets, I'm going to click on the custom, and I'm going to see where it says here fit to artboard bounds. I'm going to click on that, and right away what it does is it reduces the size of the artboard so the artboard fits perfectly around my logo. That's all I'm trying to do. Hit OK. And now what I've done essentially is I've trimmed away any excess page that I just don't need for this logo. Nice, neat, and concise. I'm going to go File, Save. And that logo is essentially ready to go. Go back to Swatches. I got all the colors I need in here. If I wanted to, I can delete these colors. I'm using the colors on another project, so I'm going to leave them because when I open up this aqua card, you're going to see that they're blue and not this color, and I don't want to startle you. I want you to understand that I actually created those colors and I'm using them. So I'm now going to do two things. I'm going to export this logo so that I can use them in my projects, which will be the card, the envelope, and the letterhead. So to do that, I go up to the File menu, and I'm going to go to Save as Copy. And I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to choose the Tonight's folder. And right now, oh, by the way, I have all this down here, this name. So let me change the name. Let's go to Aqua Logo, and I'm just going to make it Aqua Logo. And the Save As type, I'm going to change. Now, there's two that I'm going to create for you, and I'm going to explain to you. The first one is the EPS, and the second one is the PDF. EPS stands for Encapsulated Postscript, so I click on EPS, and then I'm going to, and notice that up here there's no EPSs in this folder, so you see nothing. So it's aqualogo.eps, and it's Illustrator EPS. I'm going to hit Save. And the EPS format is essentially a format that it offers me a transparent background, which, when I mean transparent background, where you see white over here, there's actually not going to be any white. It's going to be transparent, almost like this was painted onto a piece of glass. So that's really why I'm using this. And it's also something which is very close to, EPS is very close to a vector. So what I'm looking for is my version, obviously. In this particular case, I'm staying with CS6. But once again, if somebody tells you you need to make Illustrator CS4 EPS, you know how to do it. You just come down here and you do it. And somebody might ask for that, believe it or not. And then, of course, the other thing is your formatting. You don't want to have none. You don't want to have TIFF black and white. What you're looking for is TIFF 8-bit color, which is essentially what's there by default. So you're going to leave that alone. But one thing that you want to be aware of is that you can make this transparent. You can make this opaque. You do not want to make this opaque. You want this to be transparent. It is selected as transparent, so you want to leave that alone. One other thing, embed the fonts. You don't have to embed the fonts, and I'll tell you why. Because in this particular case, what I did was after I made this logo, I turned all of the fonts, which would be that word excursion and that word aqua, I turned them into vector shapes by turning outlines on them, creating the outlines for them. Okay, so you don't really have any fonts in this particular piece. Now, if your piece has text which has not been converted to outlines, you would make sure that that embedded font is selected so you embed that font. But in this particular case, when you work on a logo, generally what you do is you turn it into a vector form when you finalize it. So this is how you want it to look. Illustrator CS6 EPS, TIFF 8-bit color, transparent, and then with the embed fonts in this particular case deselected, I hit OK. And it writes the EPS format, and when I come up here and I click, I now have my Aqua Logo Start.ai, and I have my Aqua Logo EPS. So there now I've added to my Tonight folder the two file formats that I need to do the work that I'm going to be doing. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to show you the other way. So I'm going to go File, Save as Copy again. And I'm going to change the name of this again. Let me just come down here and I'm going to make it Aqua Logo, because that's really what it is, Aqua Logo. This time, though, instead of choosing EPS, I'm going to choose Adobe PDF. And again, I'm going to choose the desktop. I'm going to go to Tonight. and Aqua Logo PDF, Adobe PDF, hit save. All right, now I get my save Adobe PDF dialog box. You got presets up here. Illustrator default is fine for this. This is just a demonstration. Preserve editing capabilities. You really can leave all this alone. This doesn't hurt anything for you. What I'm going to show you later on is the marks and bleeds, because there's two ways to do this. There's a way to do this when you are going to be using this PDF within another document. And there's a way to do this when you are sending something for final production to a printer. So the way I'm doing this right now is it is going to be used in part of another production. It's going to be used in part of a business card. So I'm going to leave this essentially just the way you see it here. If you need the standard and the compatibility, you may get instructions from your printer, and you could change these by just dropping them down, and the printer might tell you, like for instance, see, I wrote build a printer. This is an instruction that I would have given somebody, and they would have put that instruction in the settings, and they would have put this in and saved it, and then if they want, they can choose that, and now they have the settings given to them by build a printer, which has to do with different aspects of this. But I'm going to come back, and I'm just going to go Illustrator default, and I'm going to hit save PDF, and I believe it's done. So I come up here, and yeah, so now in here I have my AI file, which is my master logo. This is the original logo that I started with. And my Aqua Logo EPS, which is the format that I'm going to use. Now this format will work in Illustrator, and it will work in Adobe InDesign, so it's a proper format for use when you're creating logos or any kind of graphics for that matter that are going to be used in either CMYK or Pantone print. That is provided you have your colors correct, which we went over earlier. And now your Aqua Logo PDF. There's your Aqua Logo PDF, which is just the other version. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is there are two ways. And you could even use the Aqua Logo Start Original, but I just don't. I generally will create an EPS or a PDF and use that. All right? So I'm going to drop this down, and I'm essentially done with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over and I'm going to show you my aquacard.ai. So this is the first portion of what you're going to be working with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the process of setting up your document in Adobe Illustrator, and then I'm going to end this discussion because the second part of this will cover the rest of it. But I did miss part of this, so I'm going to actually do a part of this demonstration, and then we'll call it quits for today. So here's my card. As you can see, I have my colors down here. I also want to show you something very interesting up here. I have my swatches, and you'll see that I did not clean out my swatches. But as you can see, I imported my logo. All right, there's my logo. I imported that logo. When I imported that logo, I want you to see what happened here. My Pantone colors came in. The colors that I chose for my logo automatically followed me into this document. So that's a really good thing, because now if I'm, and it does the same thing in Adobe InDesign as well. It'll follow, those colors will follow you into Adobe InDesign, and you will then be able to utilize those colors correctly within your composition, which in this case is a business card. So what I'm going to do here is come up, and again, I'm going to select all unused, and I'm going to delete them all, get rid of them all, hit yes. I still have this persistent black. I don't know why, but I'm going to delete that as well. And I have my two colors that I'm using for my logo and my black. So if you look at what's here, you got black, you got that blue, and you got that blue. There's your three colors. The project requires a three-color logo be created, or I'm sorry, a three-color business card to be created. All right? So now, how do we go about setting up a document in Adobe Illustrator? My second part of the lesson will show you how to do it in InDesign, but I'm going to show you right here how I do this in Illustrator. So I'm going to go File, New, and I get my New Document dialog box. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I want you to deal with. And first of all, we're going to call this my stationery. I don't know whether I spelled that A or Y. stationary. Yeah, I guess that's close enough. The profile will be print. So again, pay attention to what I'm doing because this is important. Stationary, profile will be print, and we're going to actually end up tonight, or when you do this, you're going to end up making three things. You're going to end up making a business card, an envelope, and a letterhead. So you might as well do that all in one, and you can do that by creating different artboards. So I have one artboard selected right now. I'm going to go 2, 3. So now I have 3 artboards. And the spacing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to space them 2 inches. Let's change this over to 2IN. Oh, and by the way, one of the things that I like to do is get rid of the units being points. I like my units in inches. All right. So I'm going to make the spacing 2, and I'm going to make the columns. You know what? I wonder if I make this 1. No, two's probably fine. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by making my business card. And I'm going to make them all business cards, and I'm going to show you how to modify them. So I'm going to come down to my size, and I'm going to choose the width. I'm going to ignore the size here. I'm going to put in here 3.5, which is equal to 3.5 inches. So that means it's 3.5 inches wide, which is a standard size for a business card. Height, I'm going to come in and set the height to be 2 inches, which is a standard card, and I'm doing it landscape, not portrait. If you want to do a portrait, you just reverse these. Not that big of a deal. Is there a bleed? Yes. Now, what is a bleed? I'm going to explain to you and show you a bleed tonight in this, and I'm going to explain to you and show you a bleed in InDesign. But a bleed essentially means that any element that you want to print to the edge of your card must actually go beyond the edge of the card and bleed by an eighth of an inch in order to make sure that your element will print properly. So how do you do that? You come in here and you choose 0.125. And now you'll notice that by having this link, all the settings will be the same. This thing's going to have a bleed of 0.125 inch all the way around. Okay? Now, as far as the advanced goes, the color mode, I'd leave the color mode alone. I'd leave the raster effects set to 300 ppi high, preview mode default. Everything is good at this point. These are the things that you most want to be concerned with, the name being something like stationary, the number of artboards. In this case, I made 3, and I gave it a 2-inch spacing. You'll see why in a minute. I gave it a width of 3.5 inches and a height of 2 inches because that's the card size, and I gave it all around the bleed of 125. Okay? Hit all right. There are my 3 cards. All right? And if you take a look at your artboards, you'll see that you actually have 3 artboards. And if I click on that artboard, you'll see that's number 2, and I'm going to change the name of that to envelope. All right? Artboard 1, I'm going to change that to card. All right? And number 3, I'm going to call that letterhead. All right. And I'm going to go view, fit all in window. And now if I click on this first one, see what it highlights? Second one, you see what highlights? Third one, do you see what highlights? So there we go. We've actually got these 3, but of course they're not the right sizes. So now that we have our 3 artboards set up, what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to make these guys the right size. So I'm going to select the envelope first, and I'm going to come up into my menu, click, and I'm going to go Artboard Options, and I'm going to change the artboard options to a width of, and let me get my information right here because I can't remember. Here we go. Okay, so it's the width of a regular number 10 envelope, which is what we're working on, and this is the envelope. Regular 10 envelope, number 10 envelope is 9.5 inches. So that means 9.5. 9.5 equals 9.5 inches. The height of this thing is 4 1/8. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to make it 4.125. And then I'm going to hit OK. And notice that my artboards are colliding. But that's really not a problem because what I can do literally if I want is I can click on the artboard tool and I can just drag that over until it's off of it. Real simple. Not a real big deal. And if I want, I can even bring it down a little bit so that's more like that. Okay? So let's now do the same thing for our letterhead. Going to come in here. Oh, and by the way, notice that you see it says 01 card, 02 envelope, 03 letterhead when I have this selected. So I get my regular selection tool to get out of there. I'm going to get my letterhead. I'm going to Artboard option it. And of course, when you're dealing with a letterhead, the letterhead has a width of 8.5, which is 8.5 inches wide, and the height of 11. And I'm going to hit OK. And once again, I got the same issue where I'm going to go view, zoom out so you can see this better. Zoom out. Oops. View, zoom out so you can see it better. And one more time, view, zoom out. There we go. Okay, so you can see this pretty good. Letterhead is selected. Come over here and I click on my Artboard tool. And what I can do with this is I can just drag this down like that if I want. And now I have or if I want, I can do this, click this and drag this over like that. And I can drag that over like that. Okay, however you want to lay this out, it's totally up to you. Okay, the bottom line is now you have your 3 individual pieces, and if you select your regular selection tool, you're back. Now let me come in real quickly and zoom in on this, because here's what I want you to understand. I have my artboard, which is right here, goes right to the edge right there. That's the actual artboard. That little red line that you see there is the bleed. That indicates that there actually has been a bleed applied to this. And all 3 of them will have a bleed because I applied them at the time I made this. This is critical because at some point you're going to export this as an Adobe PDF for print, which you'll see in the second part of the video. You'll see that done, and you're going to have this done in order for that to work properly. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the View menu, and I'm going to go to Rulers, and I'm going to show my rulers. So now I have my rulers out here, and what I want to do next is I want to place the same sort of a concept I want to place on the inside of the board. I want to place what's known as a margin. The margin will allow me a space between the edge of my card and my live elements on the page. Just like this allows me a spot to bleed my artwork to. Okay, so let me switch back over here. I'm going to go to my card first. Let's go to the card, make sure I'm on the card one. There we go. And I'm going to go view, zoom out. There we go. And that's probably pretty good. All right, so I'm on my card right now. You can tell because there's the card layer selected. I'm going to come over here, and in order to get the guides, what I generally do is I click and I hold and I drag my guide out and I bring it to the 0 point. And then I move it over about like that. That's about 1/8 of an inch. Okay? Actually, you know what? Let's go view, guides, lock guides, unlock the guides. I'm actually going to make it 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, that's much better. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag and I'm going to put a guide out another 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so there we go. So now I have a guide, and I'm not going to bother putting a guide over here or over here because I'm going to just visually do this. But I do want it up in this corner because this is the business corner, so to speak. All right, I'm going to go back to my swatches panel, and the first thing I'm going to do, like I told you, I always do the same thing. I know this may sound ridiculous, but as a good designer, you need to do these things. These are things that really matter. So I'm going to come up here, drop on this, select all unused, and I'm going to hit delete. And they're all gone. Get rid of that one too. Delete. So now I have no colors up here except black, which black essentially is what I'm going to use. And if I want, I can double click on that black, see, and I can come in here and I can set this thing to spot color, and I now have a spot black. Hit OK. Choose another name. All right, so I want to call this color 3. Yeah. Color 3, and it's a spot color. Hit OK. There. Okay, so now instead of this being a process color, that is actually a spot black color. Okay? I know this sounds ridiculous, but believe me when I tell you, these are things you need to understand. You need to know. And it's all very simple if you just know what you're doing. And essentially what we are doing, we have an assignment. The assignment is producing a black and 2 Pantone color. So what you want is you want these things to be spot colors, because that's what a Pantone color is. It's essentially a spot color. All right, so that color is now all set up. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go Place. And I'm in my Tonight folder. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to actually bring in all three of these, because I want you to see that all three of these will actually work. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click on the Aqua logo EPS, and I'm going to hit Place. There's my Aqua logo EPS. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to drag that thing over here, and I'm going to place it so that the edge just hits that margin. Okay, I don't want this thing to bleed. I don't want it to go over here. Okay, that would be if I wanted it to bleed. I don't want that. I don't want it to come to the edge. No, I want it to end right about there. Okay, so what I'm getting at is nothing goes any closer to the edge than those blue lines right there. So that's probably a pretty good place for that Aqua logo to go. I'm going to move it up a little bit, because the first thing that I'm going to do is, if you take a look at my Aqua card, I got this nice little banner across the bottom here. So I'm going to go back to my stationery, and I'm going to get my rectangle tool here. And by the way, I almost forgot to point this out to you. When I brought this logo in, look at what happens up here in my Swatches panel. Notice that my two colors came in with me. So now I have my spot burgundy and I have my spot yellow. So I can actually create my three-color business card, letterhead, and envelope using the exact correct colors. And I can be sure that when I get done doing this, it is going to go to the printer and those colors will work for the printer. So you can see by taking the time and effort to do this that you're going to get a result that'll work fantastically. So I'm going to come over here, click on this, and I'm going to drag myself a little rectangular shape along the bottom here. And I want you to take note that I'm actually dragging that shape all the way to the red line, all the way to the red line, and all the way to the red line. That means essentially that this color will print a little bit beyond the edge of your paper, so when it's cut back, it'll go right to the edge. That's called a bleed. It's bleeding off the left-hand side, the bottom, and the right. That's not the color I want. I want the burgundy color, so I'm going to change it to a burgundy color, and I actually think that this is a little bit wider than I want, so I'm going to resize it down a little bit, just about like that. There, that's pretty good. Now what I can do is I can take my logo and I can bring my logo down to about where I want my logo to be. Now I just want to point this out to you that when you create these three pieces, which I'm going to quickly demonstrate and then I'm going to end for today, when you create these three pieces, I am concerned about your graphic style and how well you handle the look of this, but what I am really concerned about is that you do this from a production standpoint properly, because I'm going to pretend to be your printer. And when this comes to me, if it is not set up properly, then I'm going to have to reject it and you're going to fail. And then you're going to have to resubmit it correctly in order to get a passing grade. I have to do that because if you send something to the printer incorrect, the printer can't use it, and that is essentially a fail. It doesn't mean it's a permanent fail, because the printer will send it back to you and you'll have to submit it correctly to him. So that's what you're going to have to do. That's why I want you to do it correct in the first place. All right, with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly whip up my card. And so I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to type in Bill Sweeney. All right, Bill Sweeney, and I'm going to type CEO because I have a big ego. Chief Executive Officer, and I'm going to use Myriad Pro. I like Myriad Pro, and I got this thing set to 12 point. That's probably a pretty good size, but what I think I'll do here is I'll come in and I'll make this bold here. Oops, wrong one. Bold. Yeah, and this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this just italic. Yeah, and I think that's probably pretty good. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to, again, bring this down into my area, and I'm going to move it over, and what I'll do probably is put another guide out here, right about where that letter is, right there. Yeah, and then I'm going to move Bill Sweeney over to where it sort of aligns with that aqua, okay? All right, so that looks pretty good, and it's way up at the top, in the top right corner. This is a good place for the name because it's right up in the top. It's right the first thing that you see. And it also is, as I select this thing, I make sure that I use the black, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to set myself a nice little rule. Hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to drag myself up a ruler, a rule like this, a line, and it is going to be, I don't know, maybe half a point line. It's going to be something very fine like that. And so there's that element. Now, we are given some instructions as to what to write as far as the text goes. So I'm going to just use the text that I was given in the assignment. And it is 1234 Main Street. And then I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to type in my town, M-Y-T-O-W-N, comma, my town, USA, and then I'm going to, what is it, 01000, hit enter. All right, I'm just copying this right off of the assignment, 555-123 space 4321, enter, and then www.aquatours.com, aquatours.com. All right, so there's my text. It's too big. What I think I'm going to do with this is the name I'm going to leave at 12 point, but I think I'm going to actually bring this down to where it's like 10 point. 10 point is probably pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down until it's looking where I want it to be, somewhere around there. Okay, so it's sort of like in line with this guy. And I can either come down and drag a guide here, or I can drag a guide here, and I can take a look at what I think actually is a good positioning. Actually, I think that's probably a little bit better. And if I wanted to, really, if I really wanted to, I can come in here and I can go to my window menu and I can go type character, and I can open up my leading just a tiny bit, see, like that, and let's see what that looks like. That don't look too bad. Okay, so you know, you can just do whatever you want to do to make this thing look good. Of course, I don't think I want this to be italic. I think what I want to do is just go at regular. All right, and there. Now, what one I might do though is I might take the www Aquatours. I might actually make that italic. Okay, and this here I might actually make bold. There. So there you have my 3-color card. That's all you have to do. Really incredibly simple. Now, the assessment is for you to create an envelope and create a letterhead. So I'm going to go View Fit All in Window, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So I have my logo. I'm going to go View Guides. Let's clear the guides. Guides, where are we at here? Oops, I'm in the wrong one. View Guides, clear guides. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my letterhead and my my envelope. So let's start with the envelope first. Make sure I'm on the envelope. I'm on the envelope layer. So as I told you, I've got 3 different pieces of art here. This one here is the EPS. Oh, and I should show you this. Go to the window menu and go to links. And there you go. So in your links panel, you'll see right here that I have the Aqua logo EPS. That's that one. Now what I'm going to do is on this board, I'm going to go File, Place, and this time I'm going to choose the Aqua logo PDF, and I'm going to hit Place. And crop to art, crop to art, hit OK. There. And it actually ends up in the wrong place. So I'm going to move this up to here. Okay? So there I now have, and I want you to see this, I have my Aqua logo EPS, which is on my business card, my PDF, which is on my stationery, and I haven't really bothered to, I just kind of threw this up in the corner here in a little bit. I didn't really go with any exactitude because, you know, I'll let you do that. I'm just trying to demonstrate how to do this. When you create an envelope like this, let's zoom in just a little bit so that you can see this slightly better. When you create an envelope like this, you have the same information down here, and you're going to go edit copy, and then you're going to come over here and you're going to go edit paste. Paste. Boom. Okay, now here's the thing. You don't really want all this stuff on here. What you want to do with this is you want to get rid of some of this. You want to get rid of this stuff right there. What you really need on a business card is just this information right here. Okay, so something like that works really good, and what I would do with this is I would just come over and I would make sure that my text lines up, something like that, and that's really correct for an envelope, nothing more. Okay, the letterhead is slightly different. Let's go View, Fit All in Window, and just so that you can see me do this, I'm going to go File, Place. And this time I'm going to take the logo and I'm going to, that's the Adobe Illustrator file now, and I'm going to hit place. And again, crop to art. And there it is, and I'm going to bring that up and I'm going to put that where that belongs. And here what I would do with this is I would probably come in and I would probably take this guy and I would go edit copy. You know what, actually I think what I'd do is click on that, hold down the shift key and click on that. And then I would go edit copy and I'd go edit paste there. And what I would then do is move this up and into a similar position as the other. Alright? And let's zoom in on this. Yeah, that's not too bad. That's probably close enough for my purposes. And then I would actually deselect the whole thing and click on that line. And I'd come over here and I would actually scale that line down until it hits right about like that. Boom. And now go View, Fit All in Window. And there we have View Guides, Hide Guides, Clear Guides. There we go. So there we have your assignment, which is to create a business card. And you have an envelope. And you have your letterhead. All right. Now this thing here might move over just a little bit. It looks like it's a little bit further over than I want it to be. That's probably a little bit better. Okay. But anyway, I think you get the general idea. Finally, take a look in the links panel. We have in here our Aqua Logo EPS, which is that right there. We have our Aqua Logo PDF, which is that right there. And we have that, which is your Aqua Logo Start.ai. So what we've done essentially in here is I've shown you how to use all three of your different types of files. Very important that you understand this, because this is really what this is all about. Realizing that there's a production techniques, or there are production techniques that you need to work with. So the final thing that we're going to do with this to wrap this up, and I think this actually is shown in the other video, but I'm here, I might as well do it now just to make sure, is I'm going to show you how to export this thing to me. You're going to export this thing either as a press-ready PDF file, or if you do it in InDesign, which I demonstrate in the other video, you're going to send it to me as a press-ready PDF file from InDesign. So here's how you create a press-ready PDF file for a spot or Pantone color job in Illustrator. You're going to go File, and you're going to go Save as Copy, and we're going to call this Stationery, and we're going to call this PDF. And I'm going to make sure I get rid of the copy here. And you can see that up here, just let me do this. Okay, you'll see up here it says Aqua Logo PDF. Aqua Logo PDF is the logo that we created using PDF. Okay, so this is actually the stationery. This is what you're going to send me. So we hit Save. And it comes up, and what it asks me is, what do you want? And I want it as the Illustrator default. That would be fine. Okay. I also want you to make sure that the Preserve Illustrator editing capabilities is selected. Make sure that's selected. Now, before we just set Save PDF, but here, since this is going to be production now, these are final pieces that are going to come to me, the printer. I want you to go into Marks and Bleeds. And here's what I want you to do. Under Marks and Bleeds, I want you to choose all the printer's marks. Now here's the marks that you need, and here's the marks you don't need. The page information you can leave. The color bars you really don't need, so you're going to deselect the color bars. The trim marks you want, and the registration marks you want. I'll explain to you in a minute what they are, the trim and the registration marks and the page information. Also, since you put in bleed settings, it says use document bleed settings. Make sure that that is selected. It's just that simple. So what you're looking for is to choose all the printer's marks. You can deselect the color bars, but you leave the others active, and you're going to hit Save PDF. That's it. I'm going to now come in here, and I'm going to open, let me bring this forward so that you can see there is your stationary PDF. And let me come over here and let me launch this, which is Adobe Reader. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag my stationary PDF into Adobe Reader. And this is what your piece should look like for correct production. What you have is you have this information here, which is the page information. You have your registration marks, which are these guys right here, the registration marks. Now remember, this is three colors. There's a yellow, there's a burgundy, and there's a black. And those registrations are what the printer uses to mark your page, mark the actual separated color and align them on the press. These lines that you see here are your crop lines. This is telling the printer exactly how and where to cut the piece out of the larger piece of paper. And if you see, we got three thumbnails here because there's three different pieces. There's your envelope, and your envelope has the same markings on it. There's your letterhead, and your letterhead has the same markings on it. And obviously, these three would be oversized and cut out of something smaller, or they would be used to create the proper shape. So that is what you need to send me. That is what I need to see, a correctly created production piece to go to the printer. That's what I'm looking for. And that's it. I'm done. The lesson's over. I'm going to end my recording right now, and you know that if you need to reach me, what you're going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to find me in the Blackboard Collaborate, and I'll give you a hand if you need it. All right?